Alright, we all have that one aunt or an uncle or a friend who drinks frankly too much for their own good. Basically, it's that friend who's known across the family or even in the town for their drunken shenanigans.
Climb down the drain pipe.
Now picture this person having a button, and the click of this button will literally end this world due to a nuclear war that'll start. My name's Gary and you're watching In Search of Life. In today's video, we'll be looking at how a Canadian rocket designed for science, a Norwegian miscommunication, and a drunken president could have ended this entire world and we wouldn't be watching this video. Let's get started. After World War II, two things happened. One, the Canadians realized how dependent they were on the Americans for research and development of weapons and trade. It's one thing to be trading just veggies across the border because, frankly speaking, they are your only neighbor, so might as well do that. But they were not really happy about being super dependent on American research and development. As a result, the Canadians decided to form something called CARD, Canadian Armament Research and Development Center. One of them is located right here in Toronto. The second thing that happened at the end of World War II was the beginning of Cold War.
Coming down like precipitation. I ain't never met a limitation. Hate applying my elimination. Gotta go to...
I mean, there was nothing cool or cool about this war, but they named it Cold War regardless. Basically, the world was divided into two poles. Half the world believed that the government should work you to death and suck every single drop of blood out of your body. Meanwhile, the other half thought it should be a corporate or a company that sucks your blood. Regardless of which side you're on, as a common Joe, you're screwed, bud. That is basically what the Cold War is. And then there was this one thing that was kind of cool about the Cold War, that is the threat of nuclear war at all times. A nuclear war between the two sides seemed imminent. It just seemed like it's going to happen, we just don't know when. And this is what gave rise to something called a doomsday clock. It's basically a clock that tells you how close we are to our end. And it came really close many a times during the Cold War. Now, the Americans had their own weapons and everything in order to fight Russia, so they decided to focus their efforts on training their kids.
Deedle-dum-dum, deedle-dum-dum, there was a turtle by the name of Bert, and Bert the turtle was very alert. When danger threatened him, he never got hurt. He knew just what to do. He ducked and covered, ducked and covered.
They basically had trainings throughout the schools that in case of a nuclear war and you hear the sirens, hide underneath the desk. Because that is what's gonna save you. Yes, all you need is a desk. Meanwhile, the Canadians were like, yo, we should develop something called an anti-ballistic missile in case the other half of the world decides to try and kill us. And hence began the research and development on making anti-ballistic missiles in Canada. Now, they tried for a while, they really didn't get much of luck, but they ended up accidentally making something called a sounding rocket. Now, if you're wondering what is a sounding rocket, if a weather balloon is a Ford of, scientific research up in the atmosphere, a sounding rocket is a Ferrari. It takes you really high so that you can really see what's going on at the upper levels of the atmosphere. This sounding rocket was very lovingly called Black Brand because that's all the black involvement the government wanted in their predominantly white research team. Many years go by and the world keeps on surviving. Somehow we never end up actually getting into a nuclear war, and finally, in the year 1991, the Soviet Union comes to an end. The Cold War is now done. For once, the doomsday clock is set to 17 minutes, the furthest it's ever been from its imminent death. The collapse of Soviet Union was brought to you by this man by the name of Boris Yeltsin. Boris Yeltsin is one of the most polarizing people I've ever read about. Basically, this son of a gun climbed on top of a moving tank in order to stop a military coup within Russia, then goes on to unite the entire nation somehow and united them into the democratic nation that they are today. At the same time, this man is known for getting on the American streets in his underwear, half drunk, in the search of a pizza while he's on a presidential tour of America as the Russian president.
Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. You see the drippy, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and the giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus. Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. You see the drippy, I'm fitted up.
This really brave man had one vice, and I guess that was drinking. I can so imagine him getting on top of a tank going, I am Russian, I don't care about tank. I fight bear, that's what I do. Now fast forward to year 1995, the most important year, the most auspicious occasions of all, the same year yours truly, myself, Gary, was born. 8 days after my birth, that is on 25th of January, the world almost came to an end. I think my sister had something to do with it. She was not happy about this new baby who she had to now share her space with. Now, how did we all almost die? That is what this video is about. Basically, a bunch of Norwegian and American scientists came together, looked at these northern lights, and they were like, yo, they look sick. We need to go up there and see what the hell's going on. So these scientists decided that on 25th of January from Andøya Space Center, which is located on the northern end of Norway, a rocket, specifically a black brand rocket, shall be launched in order to understand what's going on with these northern lights. As part of their normal procedures, they sent out a communication to the rest of the world, letting them know, hey guys, if you just see this thing called black brand flying through your space, ask your cops to lay low. We don't need to shoot it down just because it says black. It's just a rocket. There are no black people on it. They're not doing anything. Or something on those lines. Not to worry about it. It's just a scientific rocket.
There's people being murdered unjustly and not being held accountable. Cops are getting paid leave for killing people.
They sent this letter to 30 different countries, including Russia, America, and all the major countries that would be concerned about seeing this thing flying through their space. And now this is where I think the Russians had a underpaid, overworked employee who frankly saw this communication and gave no flying fajitas about this. He basically didn't pass the message to anyone, he just ignored it.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Finally, on the 25th of January, the rocket takes off as we determined. As the rocket starts gaining height and speed, none other than the Russian nuclear missile detection system picks up this missile and goes, hey guys, this looks a little fishy. You see, a rocket coming from America would follow the same trajectory and basically fly right over Norway heading towards Russia. This was a big issue. Now these technicians who are just looking at this rocket coming in, they're like, what the fuck, bro? They start looking through their notes and they obviously don't find anything because someone didn't do their job. Now, they reach out to Boris Yeltsin,
You see the drippy, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car.
who, for all we know, could be drunk. Boris is woken up in the middle of the night and they give him this briefcase. A briefcase which has the button that we were talking about, which is utilized in order to launch your own counter-strike against the American nuclear missile. Now, this situation went 0 to 100 real quick. I mean, from just a scientific escapade that's supposed to look at northern lights to the imminent end of the world, it just took off real quick. As they gave him the briefcase, they informed him it's only 10 minutes that they have within which they have to retaliate, or else it's too late because the missile's coming in hot. Now, there isn't a lot of information on what transpired in those 10 minutes because Russia, nobody knows. But for 8 minutes, the man just decided to wait and see how it goes. 2 minutes before it's too late, he receives a notification stating that the missile is starting to go away from Russia and is starting to fall towards the sea. Crisis was averted. According to CIA, this is the only time the world came this close to a nuclear war. The key takeaway here, I mean, there isn't much to take away here, but let's say a key takeaway. If let's say you ask your boss for a raise and he says no, just give him the middle finger and
I said, fuck you and your eyebrows.
For all we know, the world could be 2 minutes from its end right now as you're watching this video. Thank you for watching this video this far. If you like this video, you'll perhaps like this video about how a country literally loves Hitler and they are just obsessed with him. Or this one over here, which tells you about how long it takes to spend $8 billion. I will see you next time. Peace, bye.